Why? Alan, one question that is often asked is, why do I have to have an ignition interlock device installed? And is there a way to actually change this?
There's two ways you can end up with an ignition interlock requirement in North Carolina. One is if you're in a scenario where you're eligible for a limited driving privilege, so you get convicted of DWI, and the way that works is generally if you blow 0.15 or more on the breathalyzer, you have an alcohol concentration of 0.15 or more, then the court can give you a limited driving privilege, but it must be limited to an ignition interlock equipped vehicle. So that's one way to get it. And in general, a judge can do it discretionarily, and there's ways to try to talk the judge out of doing that. So in that sense, you might avoid it. But if you are in the scenario where your alcohol concentration was proven to the court to be 0.15 or more, then the short answer is no. You can't get around it. You're going to have that limitation if you want to be able to drive. Now, the way the statute is written is sort of confusing because it says if you have a 0.15 or more alcohol concentration and you get convicted of a DWI, well, you otherwise, it would be eligible for a driving privilege. What the statute says is when you reinstate your license at the end of your year revocation, then you have to have an ignition interlock limitation on your driver license for a period of 1 year. But then the statute goes on to say that if you had a driving privilege during that time of revocation for which you had a ignition interlock requirement on your privilege, which is the only kind you can get, then you get credit for that time against that year. So the legislature in its stupidity, its wisdom, included in that a 45-day period of time at the beginning of your sentence where you cannot get a driving privilege at all. So you got 45 days where you can't drive. Then you get the ignition interlock limited driving privilege for a year minus 45 days. So then you get your license back at the end of the year. You still have 45 more days to have a restriction on your license to make it up for that whole year. Then once you've served all that, then you can get your license back without it. So that's how it applies in the first offense scenario. And there's another way that you can end up with having an interlock requirement.
Great to know.
So then you can ask me about that, and I'll tell you that. That was